There's something oddly comforting about a book that doesn't celebrate perfection, but rather treats it as the surest sign that you're missing the point. The Imperfectionists by Robert McLean and Conn feels like a warm, clear-eyed conversation with two thoughtful mentors. The sort of people who've spent years in the boardrooms and strategy sessions of high-stakes organizations, yet come away humbler, not harder. And at its heart, this is what makes the book feel both deeply human and quietly radical. It's about letting go of the illusion that the smartest strategy is the one that looks perfect on paper, and instead embracing the messy, uncertain, experimental work of figuring out what really works in the real world. From the very first pages, it's clear that McLean and Conn are not here to hand us a shiny formula or a one weird trick for guaranteed success. Instead, they invite us into a different mindset altogether. A blend of curiosity, humility, and discipline that treats strategic work less like engineering and more like exploration. In their view, the best thinkers aren't those who get it right the first time. They're the ones who keep refining, questioning, and adapting, the imperfectionists. What gives the book its soul is that it doesn't shy away from uncertainty. Instead, it argues that uncertainty is not just inevitable but essential, because it keeps us honest, creative, and awake. In a world that changes faster than our slide decks can keep up, clinging to a single perfect strategy is a kind of blindness. What matters more is the willingness to keep testing, learning, and evolving even when it means acknowledging we might have been wrong. The book is structured around what the authors call the imperfectionist mindset, and it's not a rejection of rigor, quite the opposite. It's about applying disciplined thinking not to prove we're right, but to get closer to the truth, even when the truth turns out to be uncomfortable. This mindset is built on several core habits: framing problems carefully, thinking in options rather than certainties, testing hypotheses quickly, and learning from small-scale experiments rather than betting everything on a single grand plan. One of the most striking parts of the book is its insistence on the power of good questions over quick answers. The best strategists, McLean and Conn argue, are those who spend more time clarifying what problem they're really trying to solve. This sounds simple, but in practice it's incredibly hard. Our minds, and often our organizations, are wired to rush to solutions. Yet a beautifully executed answer to the wrong question is worse than useless. It can send us confidently in the wrong direction. In one story that stayed with me, the authors describe a company that spent months perfecting a marketing strategy, only to realize they had never really asked why customers weren't buying in the first place. Once they reframed the question, they discovered the problem wasn't awareness, but trust, and a different set of solutions became obvious. It's a humbling reminder that clarity is often more powerful than cleverness. Throughout the book, McLean and Conn share examples from their own work, in business, nonprofits, and public policy, and what's striking is how often the winning move turned out to be something small, cheap, and provisional. A low-fidelity prototype, a quick customer interview, a pilot in one market before rolling out globally. These aren't flashy moves, but they create real learning, and real learning compounds into real advantage. What makes the book feel deeply human rather than purely academic is the author's frank acknowledgement that being an imperfectionist takes courage. It's not always easy to say, "I don't know," or to put forward an idea that might fail. In many organizations, there's pressure to appear decisive and confident, even when that confidence is built on wishful thinking. The imperfectionist mindset asks us to replace pride in being right with pride in getting better, which can feel vulnerable at first, but ultimately becomes far more empowering. Another idea that feels quietly radical is their emphasis on options thinking, always generating multiple ways forward, rather than anchoring on a single plan. This runs against much of traditional strategy work, which often converges quickly on a single preferred path. But by holding several competing hypotheses, we remain open to surprises, and we're less likely to miss the real signal in the noise. McLean and Conn don't pretend this mindset is easy, especially in large organizations where complexity, inertia, and politics can cloud judgment. But they offer practical tools, ways to structure thinking, ways to communicate options to decision-makers, and ways to design experiments that yield actionable insights rather than just data for its own sake. One of the book's most hopeful themes is the idea that imperfectionists don't just tolerate uncertainty. They actually use it as a source of creativity and resilience. When we stop demanding that our plans be perfect, we free ourselves to explore new ideas, pivot quickly when evidence suggests, and stay humble enough to keep learning. In a paradoxical way, accepting imperfection makes us more effective, not less. Yet the authors are also clear-eyed about the discipline this requires. Being an imperfectionist isn't about being sloppy or unfocused. It's about applying rigor where it matters most, in defining questions, designing tests, and honestly evaluating results. It asks us to keep our thinking sharp and our egos soft, to care more about truth than about looking smart. Perhaps the most quietly moving part of the book is its underlying philosophy, that imperfection is not a flaw to be fixed, but a fact of life to be embraced. In our personal lives too, we're often taught to strive for flawlessness. The perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect self. But McLean and Conn remind us that real progress in business and beyond happens when we engage honestly with what's messy, provisional, and incomplete. Closing the Imperfectionists, what lingers isn't just a set of tools or frameworks, though there are plenty. It's a deeper, almost philosophical lesson. That wisdom isn't about having all the answers, but about asking better questions, staying curious longer, and being willing to revise our beliefs in the face of new evidence. And that in a world defined by change, the real competitive advantage isn't perfection. It's the humility and discipline to keep learning. Reading this book doesn't leave you with the false comfort of certainty. Instead, it leaves you with something sturdier. A quiet confidence that you don't have to know everything in advance to move forward. That progress is built from small bets, honest reflection, and the courage to be wrong today so you can be righter tomorrow. And in the end, perhaps that's the most human message of all. That our strength lies not in denying our imperfections, but in learning to work with them, thoughtfully, creatively, and above all with a mind still open to being surprised. Because perfection may look impressive for a moment, but imperfection, embraced wisely, is what keeps us alive, adaptive, and truly capable of finding our way in an uncertain world.